So now that Stadia has been out for a little while now, I've had a chance to play it, check it out, and I will eventually give my final thoughts on it as it stands with its launch. But one thing that keeps getting brought up is the question around the controller and if it's any good. The Stadia controller is the one real piece of hardware that Google created for consumers to have technically in their house around Stadia. The Chromecast Ultra already existed before this. They just repurposed it and used it to technically stream Stadia to your TV. The controller's been very interesting to me, and I've been waiting to open it so I had enough time to check out Stadia. And today, we're going to be taking this guy apart, looking inside, and seeing how the quality is around it, and I'll also give my thoughts on the controller itself. And after watching a Gamers Nexus video on this controller, it didn't look like it was a lot of fun to take apart. They called it a nightmare, so I figure I should probably get a sponsor for the video just in case I destroyed this controller and end up having to get another one. Thanks to GameStop and their Black Friday sale for sponsoring the video. Now, we've been talking about Black Friday for a while now, and next week, of course, is when it all begins. GameStop's going to be opening their doors Thursday, November 28th at 3 p.m., and I figure we'd take a quick look at some of their ad here. So one thing I like that they're doing is they're giving away $25 gift coupons with different purchases, like that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Switch bundle. So if you were thinking about getting that, this is probably the place to get it, since they'll hand you a $25 gift coupon as well, or just a Switch Lite, you'll also get that same gift coupon. Some of their doorbusters include Call of Duty Modern Warfare at $38, Borderlands 3 at $30, Ghost Recon Breakpoint at $28, and then Mortal Kombat 11 also at $28, and look at that, they even have Anthem down to $5. They also have games like Red Dead Redemption 2, Judgment, Medieval, Sekiro, and Ni no Kuni, just to name a few that are also getting marked down pretty heavily. If you're looking to stock up on some of the PlayStation games you may have missed, they have a whole host of PlayStation hits for $9.99. That includes games like God of War, Persona 5, which is actually really cheap for Persona 5 at that point, Bloodborne, Gran Turismo, Uncharted Collection, a whole bunch of stuff there. Oh, and check this out. The game's Sentinel Portable Personal Gaming Unit and the game's Vanguard Portable Personal Gaming Environment are going to be heavily discounted. I was a bit surprised to see how cheap these things were going to be compared to their normal retail price, but on Thursday, you'll have them up to $150 off, with the Sentinel at $199.99 and then the Vanguard at $179.99. They'll also have a bunch of Switch games on sale, like Collection of Mana at $24.99, Final Fantasy 12 also at $24.99, and then even Ghostbusters at $10 off. I also noticed that their shirts let me buy one, get one free, which works out great for me since I get a lot of my shirts from GameStop. All of this starts November 28th and runs to December 1st. I'll leave a link below if you want to check out their entire 17-page Black Friday ad. Yeah, weird, right? Who'd have thought GameStop would want to sponsor a video, but it's for their Black Friday sales, and to be honest, looking at their ad, it's pretty good. I'm going to be stopping by there on Friday, along with a couple other stops to pick up some games. And I said whenever we do sponsorships, we'll do a giveaway, and we're going to do one here today. If you check down below in the description, we have a link up for a giveaway for a $50 card to any of the different storefronts you would want, whether it's the PlayStation Store, the Xbox Store, the Nintendo eShop, or Steam. We could do a $50 gift card there, so go ahead and enter for your chance to win that. If you win, you'll just have to let me know which storefront you want that for. So why don't we head on over to the workbench, and we'll take a look at the Google Stadia controller and see what's inside and if it's any good. So I had to switch over to my lapel microphone, mostly because I'm anticipating a bit of a fight here after seeing the Gamers Nexus video. So that's why I've changed over to that, and audio may not be as good as what I usually have with a different type of microphone. But I figure that'll give me enough wiggle room, essentially, and ability to move around better to kind of get this guy apart. I am anticipating a bit of a fight here. But let's talk a bit about this controller and what I think of it so far. So it's a pretty standard setup. It really looks like they kind of merged like all of the controllers that we know now together. Like if you look at like the PS4 controller, the Xbox One controller, or the Switch controller, it seriously looks like just a mishmash of all of those controllers kind of jammed together. It does feel pretty good in the hand though. The top is more smooth, whereas the bottom has kind of this this textured feel around it, and I think that's mostly just to help with grip, but it still doesn't grip as well as other controllers, so keep that in mind. It still is a little slippery in the hand, but for the most part, it's okay. We have two sticks here. We have a D-pad. A and B are in the traditional Xbox One setup. Then we have, I guess what we have basically are start, select, then we have our assistant button that doesn't do anything yet, because they didn't have that ready for launch. And then we have our share button, which can take a screenshot if you press it or you press and hold, and it will save the last 30 seconds, all of which is saved to their server or their cloud, and then you can access it from your phone, your Stadia app. There's a headphone jack on the bottom, 3.5 millimeter. Then we have a microphone on the back where I guess the Google Assistant, when you do press that button, and it will eventually work, will take any input from you, whether you're saying commands, like I guess record that or look this up. And then on the back we do have kind of the Google logo there. On the top we have R1, L1, and then we have R2, L2. These I do not like. I don't like R1 and L1. They feel kind of tactile, but they don't feel great in my mind. The triggers on the back, however, feel better, but they're a little too loose, I think. So consider what you have for the PS4 controller. That's probably my best example I can give for this, but looser. So there's not as much tension to it. That's what this feels like. I don't like it as much. Just a little tighter, I think, on R2 and L2 on that travel, and at that point it'll be pretty good. Does use USB-C at the top. Great, everything should at this point. I'm not a fan of having to use anything other than USB-C right now. It's a much better input. The D-pad is, I would say, probably just below average. It's tactile. I'm not a fan of tactile ones to this degree. It literally feels like there are 4 buttons underneath, and you can hear it clicking. So I think rolls for fighting games aren't going to be as good, right? Especially going from back to forward. It's basically like you're just pressing 4 or 3 buttons going around. Not the biggest fan. However, for platformers, or if you're playing a game like a shooter and you're trying to use these to switch between secondary fires or grenades or whatever else they have kind of mapped to the D-pad, that will have a better, more accurate press. The sticks are good. At this point, like, sticks should always be good at now because I think they've pretty much figured it out. I do like kind of the orange accent against the dark blue. I think it looks very, very good in person like that. And I do really like that. We have the Stadia button in the middle. That's basically their home button. It does have a different LED underneath of it that will glow different colors depending on what's happening. I've seen white and like an orange, but I guess there's a chance it could have other colors programmed to it. The weight's pretty good. The thing I really like about this controller, it feels very, very solid in the hand. So like some controllers you can take, you can bend, you can make it creak, you can do all kinds of stuff. This is not that type of controller. It is rock solid. It is. It has good weight to it, but the biggest thing is it feels premium. Like if you really try to bend it, it doesn't really move. And that is a good thing overall. It does use the old style rumble in there, and it is very violent and kind of annoying at times. Does not have any type of the, I guess, the haptic feedback that we're used to now in things like the Switch Pro controller, the Joy-Con controllers, and what appears to be happening with the PS5 and the Scarlet controllers is moving towards that as well. A, B, X, and Y use more of a rubber, like a membrane style, so the D-pad is tactile. This is more of a membrane. I prefer those to almost be swapped if I could have it that way, although that would just make it even louder. I mean, this is already kind of a loud controller. Like, all the buttons are pretty much just loud. These aren't as bad, but everything else around it is pretty loud. Otherwise, though, like I said, a pretty good controller. This might be, for a lot of people, the best part of Stadia right now is that, hey, Google produced what I would say is a high-quality controller. And now the fun part, getting it actually into pieces, getting it apart. Now, I did see the video, like I said, Gamers Nexus. They brought in chemicals. They did all kinds of stuff. They dremeled it. I don't want to have to do that. I'd like this controller to still work, basically take it apart, put it back together again, and have it still function. Mostly because this is the controller I used to try out Stadia, and I'm still kind of testing it and playing around with it, although I've been using it enough now to, I think, do a review on it. But I do know they were kind enough to at least show that it is there is a screw under the sticker, and the rest I have to work out some strong clips. So first things first, I'm going to use my old cell popper tool that I use on the cell chips for the PS3. This works to really separate things pretty well. It's going to come in handy here to get what's basically a sticker off of here. A little bit of heat would have helped too, but you can see right there it popped right off. Very clean, actually. And of course, they wanted to use torque screws, probably to annoy me. They probably thought in factory, what's the screw we can use to annoy John the most? And it is definitely torque screws. So with that torque screw out, now we get to try to get this guy apart. So I've dealt with strong clips many, many times in my life when it comes to repairing things. And generally the best way to do it is to get something strong enough to separate them without actually damaging it at one little point. A lot of times you might see flatheads, smaller flatheads being used. I've broken several of those. So what I started to get closer towards are tools that are solid. So this is one solid piece that's bent, that's kind of separate or joined at the top here. It's kind of a flathead almost set of tweezers. These work really well for separating strong clips because of course this is stronger than plastic and it should, if I wedge it correctly, should pop it open. I'm also going to start at the top here, mostly because it's a little easier to get around it at the top rather than go all the way up here where the bumpers are. I almost want to avoid that as much as possible to start and try to get around on the other side where I can more or less separate it pretty well. So I'm just going to kind of work my way around, searching for the clips that I know are here and hopefully be able to kind of dislodge them. Now, as I work around, it tries to close back up at the top. You can use a few things to kind of hold it until you pop one of the clips. I'm gonna keep this cell popper in here, but you can also use things like expired gift cards. I've used those before, and it worked well enough, but again, I'm just gonna keep searching for this clip as I go along. Okay, so we popped our first clip right here. I'm gonna keep the pressure on with this cell popper as I go around here. Went ahead and popped clip number 2. So this is already trying to separate, which is great news. I'm gonna kind of move the cell popper around here and just kind of jam it right in there, just to try to keep it pretty much separated. Now I'm gonna kind of work around the bottom. Okay, so I popped those clips. I think we're just about ready to kind of give it a good pull there. There we go. And we are in. So if you deal with strong clips like these, you just want to take your time. I do like something like this. I mean, these come in a pretty standard tweezer sets, and this really worked well. It also helped that I knew that there were stronger clips in here, and a big shout out to Gamers Nexus for pretty much destroying a controller to show me what was at least in the beginning so I could get it to this point. Anyway, once it is opened, it separates into 2 pieces. So we have our top piece here that has 3 Torx screws, and that is for all of the buttons at the top. I'm actually gonna go ahead and take a look at this piece first. I'll put that over there. I want to take a look at the D-pad and the other buttons just to see how they have them set up. And of course, they changed the size of the Torx screws because why not? It's pretty much what I figured it would be. Nothing too crazy or fancy here. We have all of our standard contact points where when you press down the button, it'll short it and tell it that that's what you're pressing. Everything except for the D-pad is that way. I don't know why they went with just straight up tactile clicks for the D-pad. I'm not sure. That's just, I guess, the direction they decided to go in, and okay, that's fine. And they have a typical setup here for all of the buttons outside of the D-pad, which is an interesting design. Let's take a look at this guy real quick. So they didn't want to use, I guess, their own rubber membrane for the D-pad, which is fine. And it's set up with all plastic, and you can see kind of some what appears to be like aluminum around the edges with it. And it essentially makes it so that it cannot press down all of them, I guess, at once. Basically, when you press one side down, it'll go up, and then you press the other one down, it'll push up on that side. So it always has kind of a press on the other side as you push down. Again, interesting design. It is nice it's one piece like this. I don't know if that saved them money or it was easier in manufacturing. Not at all sure as to why they did that, but that's what they did. So back to the main unit here, we of course have 2 covers for the joysticks. These joysticks are so standard, like there's nothing crazy about these at all. And that's why I say at this point, joysticks, I think, should be pretty much right by any company that does them at this point. I mean, it's so easy to do them now. It's commonplace, so they're not even really worth talking too much about. It's just, it feels very similar to like an Xbox One joystick, if you want a good example there. We have this plastic, almost plastic skeleton inside, and that does help with the kind of the rigidness I was explaining before, where if you move it, it doesn't really creak or bend or flex. A lot of that, I would assume, has to do with this in the middle, and I do like that. So we have motherboard underneath, we have this kind of this thicker Yeah, it's a thick plastic with several screws going through on top of that, and then we have the top motherboard with the buttons and D-pad. I do like that. I like having that extra bit of rigidness in the middle to keep it from flexing. Also, they've changed back to the T7 screws for whatever reason. Don't know why. They also decided to kind of clip the outer casing, this bottom casing, around kind of the skeleton and motherboard, so you have to unclip it like around the edges here to get it to even pop out. And once you do, you have what appears to be the battery connected to the bottom there. Otherwise, though, it's all one piece. And again, it just kind of supports the motherboard. I do like that approach, by the way, that it's being supported. Even the rumble motors, also supported by this kind of this larger piece of plastic all the way around. Otherwise, though, it looks like there's one screw here holding it in, and then we also have plugs here and here for our rumble motors. So one screw out, and that should pretty much release this plastic around it. We do, of course, still have these rumble motors here that need to be unplugged to kind of get it free, but let me just look around to make sure the plastic is ready to come off. It looks like it is. I think we have some clips here that are holding it in, so I just have to free those, and then I should be able to take this off. We can take a look at the board. Okay, and there we go. The plastic is removed. This guy also kind of came off separately here. Reminds me very much of like the 360. Remember the 360 has those kind of bumpers to it? Same kind of tactile. I think the pressing is better with this than it is with something like the 360. I think the Xbox One shoulder buttons are better though for that. Has similar tactile buttons though at the top. So looking at the controller and what we have in terms of our chips, the main one is this little guy right here. It's a microprocessor they have set up. It appears to be a Cortex M7, and this pretty much runs the show for the controller. So when you wake up the controller and you have to pair it, or you need to tell your Chromecast Ultra to launch Stadia when you press the button, this does all of that. It also appears to connect to, right here is our, I guess our chip, our networking chip that deals with like Wi-Fi to your router and runs all of that. And then we have this big metal thing here that is our antenna. They are using this external one that sticks out here, probably because it has to go all the way to your router in your house. So they have to account for having to have pretty good range, right? I mean, even if you're in several rooms over, you still want it to be able to connect to your router well enough. So they put a pretty serious antenna in here. That is something I'll give them some pretty good credit for. That is a solid antenna for that range. It also sticks out backwards, pretty much away from you. Well, it's right here, so it would stick towards you. But the good thing about that is you're not going to cover it up. So let's say you're playing, you're not going to be like up here with your thumb. That is a good spot, actually, sticking straight out towards you. The board itself, very, very thick, and it's pretty solid. Overall, you know what? I have to give Google credit. They made a quality product here with this controller. And, let's take a look at the battery as well before we put it all back together. Looking at the battery, it appears to be a 2,000 milliamp hour battery, and Google, mostly from what I've seen, just said it lasts longer than the DualShock 4, but less than the Switch Pro controller, which puts us anywhere between 10 to about 40 hours. I am going to estimate, okay, that this would be, I'll put it in the range of 15 to 20 hours. That also includes kind of my experiences and my playtime so far. So not bad, not bad. And considering it is connecting using Wi-Fi to your router as well, that's actually pretty good. On the bottom here is our microphone. It just connects through contact pads there. And otherwise, that is the Google Stadia controller. I guess there's nothing left to do but to put it back together and hopefully still have a good working Stadia controller. I also want to remark that they do a pretty good job, Google did, making this controller with clips everywhere. This battery had to be slid out because it was clipped in, and looking around, everything is kind of set up to not really rattle or move around at all. Everything's just so solid inside. It really is good. There we go. That's the one nice thing about getting these back together. You usually get those really nice clicks where it really snaps together. And there we go. Everything feels good overall. There we go. Well, that's going to do it here for the Stadia controller. One thing I've noticed after opening this guy up, it's definitely not set up for repairs. As in, like, no one should really be opening this thing at all. I think even most experts are going to struggle with this. It is a real pain inside, and the fact that they're using torque screws all throughout it for whatever reason, I don't know. But I did manage to get it broken down to the board, check some stuff out, and then put it back together, and it works fine. So at least everything in there is modular. The one problem that I really have with it is getting to the battery is, I mean, everything has got to come out. That's terrible. I wish they had put like a door on the back so you can get to the battery easily, since it's modular anyway, because that is, I mean, that's the thing that would probably give out after, you know, so many years. But interesting stuff there. Let me know what you guys think about the Stadia controller down below, and make sure you guys like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.